everyone, and welcome back to our podcast. I'm Sophie.
And I'm Leo. Hi, everyone. Today, we're talking about something I know many of you struggle with, learning English. But not just that. It's about why you shouldn't quit and how you can actually change the way you learn to make it more fun and effective.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Leo, I've seen so many friends give up on English because they felt stuck, like they weren't making any progress. And I've been there too. Those moments where you just think, maybe it's too late for me.
I know exactly what you mean. I remember trying to speak in English during my first job interview in another country. I was so nervous I could barely get 2 sentences out. But I also realized that giving up wouldn't solve anything. You just have to change your approach.
That's exactly it. And that's what we want to share today. Real ways to keep going without feeling frustrated all the time. And we'll also talk about some simple expressions you can start using every day.
Yes! And before we dive in, a quick reminder. If you enjoy this conversation, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and check out the PDF we've prepared with the full conversation. It's a handy reference while you learn.
All right, let's get started.
So, Sophie, let's start with something personal. I want to ask, have you ever felt like quitting English completely?
Oh, so many times, especially in my early 20s. I remember I was working at a small company and my boss asked me to write an email in English. I spent hours on it, checked every word, and still felt embarrassed sending it. I thought, maybe I'm just not meant to do this.
I can relate. I had a similar experience when I first moved abroad. I was at a coffee shop trying to order something simple, and I completely froze. My brain just went blank. I wanted to crawl under the table.
That's exactly how it feels. But here's the thing. I realized that moment didn't mean I was bad at English. It just meant I had to change how I was learning it. Not harder, just differently.
Right. And that's where a lot of people go wrong. They try to force themselves through boring grammar exercises or endless vocabulary lists. But that doesn't work for everyone. Sometimes small, meaningful changes make a bigger difference.
Absolutely. For example, one thing I started doing was watching TV shows or short videos in English without subtitles at first. It was frustrating at first, but I picked up phrases naturally, the way kids do. Like the phrase, hang in there. It's a simple way to say, don't give up.
Oh, I love that one. And I've also started using give it a shot a lot. It's like saying, try it, even if you feel unsure. I use it with my students all the time, and they love it because it's encouraging.
That's a great one. And speaking of encouragement, I think another phrase that really helped me is piece of cake. I remember thinking certain tasks were impossible in English, and then I'd try them slowly and realize, hey, it's actually a piece of cake. Much easier than I thought.
Yes, that expression is so fun. And it really shows that learning English doesn't have to be this huge, scary thing. Little successes matter.
Exactly. And you know, for me, one emotional turning point was when I decided to talk to people, even if I made mistakes. I remember emailing someone from another country, and they replied so kindly. That made me realize mistakes are not the end of the world.
That's a big moment for a lot of learners. I remember when I joined a group of English speakers, I was terrified of speaking. But then someone said, don't worry, just jump in. That's another expression we use in English, jump in. It means don't hesitate, start participating.
Oh yes, jump in is perfect. And it really worked for me. After that, I stopped overthinking every sentence and started enjoying the process.
And I think that's the key message we want to share today. Don't quit because it feels hard. Change your approach. Try small, practical steps and focus on real communication.
Exactly! Even short daily habits make a huge difference. For example, I write 3 short sentences in English every morning in my notebook. Not long essays, just small thoughts. That's another phrase, a little goes a long way. It means even small efforts can lead to big results.
That's brilliant! And it also removes the pressure. Learning English shouldn't feel like a punishment. It should feel like exploring a new world, one small step at a time.
I completely agree. And it's not just about words, it's about confidence too.
I remember one day I told myself, I can do this, before talking to someone in English. Simple words, but they changed my mindset completely.
That's so powerful. That's actually another expression learners can use. I can do this. It's simple, but saying it aloud gives you courage. And courage is half the battle when learning a language.
Absolutely. And I think that emotional side of learning English is often overlooked. We focus so much on grammar and vocabulary that we forget how important feelings are.
True. I mean, even I get nervous sometimes before speaking, but I remind myself, everyone starts somewhere. That's another phrase, acknowledging that progress takes time, and it's okay to be at the beginning.
Exactly. And connecting emotionally with English makes it easier to stick with it. Whether it's funny videos, heartfelt songs, or conversations with friends, it's about finding what makes you feel alive in the language.
Yes, and when you do that, quitting just doesn't feel right anymore. You start enjoying the journey.
Couldn't agree more.
So, Sophie, since we were talking about emotions and motivation, I want to ask, what's the biggest struggle you see adults face when learning English?
I think it's fear of making mistakes. Many adults worry that if they say something wrong, people will judge them. I used to feel that way too. I rehearse every sentence in my head before speaking, and honestly, that just made me freeze more often.
I can relate so much. I remember attending a networking event once, and I stayed quiet the whole time because I was terrified of messing up. But then I realized that people weren't paying attention to my mistakes. They were just enjoying the conversation.
Exactly. And that's when I started telling myself, it's okay to be imperfect. It sounds simple, but it's a mindset shift. Mistakes are proof that you're learning.
That's a great point. And you know, another useful phrase for that is trial and error. It means trying something, learning from mistakes, and improving. I use it with my students all the time. They realize that errors aren't failures, they're steps forward.
Yes, trial and error is perfect. And I think it's also about finding methods that fit your life. For example, I realized I hate memorizing long word lists, but I love short stories. So I started reading mini stories in English every day. I'd highlight expressions I liked and practice them.
Oh, that's clever. That reminds me, I started keeping a phrase notebook. Every time I hear a useful expression, I write it down with an example sentence. It's easier to remember than random vocabulary lists.
That's so smart. And it makes learning practical too. Like when you write, hang in there, or give it a shot, you're not just memorizing words, you're learning how people actually speak.
Exactly. And you know what's funny? Sometimes the phrases that stick with you emotionally are the ones you remember the longest. I'll never forget when a colleague told me, don't stress about it. I was panicking before a presentation, and that simple sentence calmed me down completely.
Oh, yes. Don't stress about it is a lifesaver. I use it every day now. And it's a great reminder that learning English should reduce stress, not increase it.
Totally. And speaking of emotions, one thing I always tell learners is to celebrate small wins. Even if you manage to introduce yourself to someone in English or write a short email without help, that's progress. That's why I like the phrase, pat yourself on the back. It means recognize your achievements, even tiny ones.
I love that. And honestly, it's so motivating. I started doing that, and suddenly learning English didn't feel like a chore. I'd finish a small task and feel proud. And when you connect effort with positive emotions, it sticks in your mind better.
Absolutely. And you know, another thing that helps is consistency. People often try intense study sessions for a few days and then burn out. But if you practice a little every day, it adds up. That's why I like the phrase, slow and steady wins the race. Small, consistent steps lead to bigger results.
Oh, that's a classic, and it really works. Even just 5 minutes of listening or speaking every day is better than one 3-hour session once a month.
Exactly. And it's easier to fit into a busy life. I mean, most adults have work, family, and other responsibilities. Short, practical practices are more realistic.
Totally. And the other thing is variety. Doing the same activity all the time gets boring. I mix listening, speaking, writing, and even watching short comedy clips.
Humor makes learning feel less like work.
Oh yes, laughing while learning is underrated. And humor also helps you remember words. I remember learning go bananas from a funny video. It means go crazy in a playful way. I still laugh every time I use it.
I love that. Expressions like that make English fun. And I think this emotional connection is key. If learning feels emotional, fun, inspiring, or even frustrating in a good way, you remember more.
Yes, Sophie. And another thing I've noticed, people often compare themselves to others and feel they're behind. But that's not useful. Learning English is personal. You set your pace, and your own progress matters more than anyone else's. That's why I like the phrase, focus on your own journey.
Oh, that's perfect. And so true. I used to get frustrated seeing peers fluent while I struggled. But then I realized it doesn't matter. What matters is I keep improving, and each small win is a victory.
Yes! And when learners feel emotional pressure to be perfect, they stop enjoying English. But when you shift the focus to fun, curiosity, and real communication, it changes everything.
Absolutely. And that's why our advice today is not just don't quit, but also change how you learn. Small changes, emotional connection, and realistic expectations make a huge difference.
Exactly. And one final tip I want to mention in this part, find your why. Ask yourself, why do you want to learn English? Maybe it's for travel, work, or even just confidence. That reason keeps you going when motivation fades.
Yes, and I think that's emotional too. When your reason matters deeply to you, quitting becomes almost impossible. So, Leo, since we talked about finding your why, I'm curious, what was your personal reason when you really committed to learning English?
Oh, that's a good question. For me, it was about independence. I wanted to be able to travel, make friends, and work without relying on translations or constant help. I remember my first solo trip abroad. It was exciting but scary. Every conversation was a test. But I also realized I couldn't let fear stop me.
I can relate. My reason was similar, but also professional. I wanted to grow in my career and communicate with international colleagues. I remember my first virtual meeting with someone from another country. I was terrified, but I managed to express my ideas. That little success made me feel unstoppable.
Yes, that feeling is addictive, and it shows how emotions tie directly to learning. Small successes build confidence, and confidence keeps you going.
Absolutely. And sometimes people expect progress to be instant, but it's not about perfection, it's about persistence. That's why I love the phrase, Rome wasn't built in a day. It reminds me that progress takes time, patience, and effort.
Exactly. And speaking of effort, I think another mistake learners make is thinking they need fancy tools or expensive courses. Honestly, the simplest things can be the most effective. For example, speaking aloud while reading a short paragraph, or repeating a sentence from a video. Small actions, big impact.
Totally. I used to think I had to memorize hundreds of words daily, but it just exhausted me. Instead, I started learning phrases in context, like what's up or long time no see, and now I use them naturally. That's how English becomes alive, not just memorized.
Yes, and context matters so much. I love teaching learners to listen to real conversations, not just textbooks. That's how you pick up expressions and the rhythm of English naturally.
Oh, and I have to share this story. I remember one time I was talking to a colleague and I accidentally said, I am boring instead of I am bored. He laughed gently and explained, and I remembered it forever. Mistakes like that stick and teach you more than memorizing rules.
That's a classic. And honestly, laughing at mistakes is part of learning. It makes the process less stressful. I encourage learners to enjoy the journey rather than fear errors.
Yes, humor is such a powerful tool. And even small daily practices create huge results. For example, I try to use one new expression every day in real life. Yesterday, I used break a leg when wishing a friend good luck. It felt fun and natural.
That's awesome. And expressions like that are great because they teach culture too. English is more than grammar. It's people, context, emotions. That's what makes learning meaningful.
Exactly. And I think another important tip is connecting English to things you love. For me, that was music and movies. I'd listen to lyrics, watch favorite scenes, and try to repeat them. Suddenly, vocabulary and expressions stuck because they were fun and emotional.
Oh, yes. I started doing that with podcasts, actually. Short, interesting stories in English made me want to listen every day. And when I repeated sentences aloud, my speaking confidence grew quickly.
And the emotional side is huge. When you love what you're learning, it's not work, it's pleasure. That's why we often say, make it enjoyable. Learning English should feel rewarding, not stressful.
Exactly. And another thing I notice, adults sometimes get stuck because they compare themselves to younger learners who seem to pick up languages faster. But age doesn't define progress. Experience and persistence often outweigh speed.
Absolutely. And I tell my students it's never too late to start. You may not be a child, but you have discipline, curiosity, and motivation, things kids often lack. Those qualities can take you far.
Yes! And speaking of motivation, I think accountability helps too. Even small commitments, like speaking to a friend or writing a short note in English daily, keep you on track. One expression I like here is hold yourself accountable. It means take responsibility for your own learning, and it really works.
I love that. And another tip is mixing speaking and listening with writing. I often write small emails or messages in English to friends. It doesn't have to be perfect, but it forces me to think in English naturally.
That's great advice. And here's something emotional I experienced. I once wrote a message to a colleague in English, and he responded with such warmth. That simple interaction gave me motivation for weeks. Positive experiences like that really reinforce learning.
Oh, yes, Leo. That's so true. Learning English isn't just academic. It's about connection, communication, and confidence. And when you experience that joy, quitting feels impossible.
Exactly. And that's our message. Don't quit. If something isn't working, don't blame yourself. Change your approach, find what's fun and meaningful, and keep going. Every small step adds up.
Absolutely. And remember, it's okay to take breaks, laugh at mistakes, celebrate wins, and enjoy the journey. English is a skill, but it's also an emotional adventure.
So, Sophie, as we wrap up, I want to reflect on one last point, how mindset changes everything. I've seen learners transform simply by thinking differently about mistakes, progress, and effort.
Absolutely. And for me, the mindset shift was realizing that learning English isn't a test of intelligence, it's a skill you build over time. I started telling myself, I'm learning, and that's enough. That little change reduced so much stress.
Yes, and mindset also helps when you hit plateaus. Everyone hits them, days when progress feels invisible, but a positive mindset keeps you trying. One phrase I like here is keep your chin up. It's a way to say stay positive even when things are tough.
Oh, I love that. And it reminds me of another. Don't lose heart. It's similar, encouraging you not to give up, even when progress seems slow. Emotional encouragement goes a long way in learning a language.
Exactly. And combining mindset with small daily habits is powerful. For example, I set a 5-minute speaking challenge every morning. Some days I speak more, some days less, but that consistency builds confidence and fluency over time.
That's a brilliant idea. I've done something similar, reading one paragraph aloud every day. It's short, simple, and feels achievable, and those tiny actions really do compound.
Absolutely. And you know, Sophie, I also encourage learners to find a language buddy if possible. Speaking with someone regularly, even casually, accelerates progress. You learn expressions, correct mistakes naturally, and gain confidence.
I completely agree. I had a friend who spoke English with me every week, and the improvement was incredible, and the emotional support made it less stressful. Sharing small victories, laughing at mistakes, that's so motivating.
Yes, and sometimes emotional connections with the language itself help too. For instance, songs, TV shows, or stories that move you emotionally make words and expressions stick in your mind much longer.
That's so true. I still remember a song I loved as a teenager, and I could sing the lyrics perfectly before I even fully understood every word. Emotions make memory stronger.
Exactly. And that's why our advice today isn't just about technique. It's about connecting emotionally with learning. If it's fun, meaningful, and slightly challenging, you'll naturally stick with it.
Absolutely. And before we end, I want to remind listeners of a few simple, powerful phrases we mentioned today that you can start using immediately. Hang in there, give it a shot, piece of cake, jump in, a little goes a long way, pat yourself on the back, Rome wasn't built in a day, and keep your chin up.
Perfect list, Sophie. And don't forget, hold yourself accountable and focus on your own journey. These are practical emotional tools to keep you motivated.
Exactly. And remember, it's okay to pause, laugh, and celebrate progress. Learning English is a journey, and every step counts, no matter how small.
So, if you're feeling frustrated, stressed, or like quitting, you don't have to. You just need to find what works for you, connect emotionally, and keep moving forward.
Yes, and we really hope this conversation inspires you to change your approach, enjoy the process, and continue your English journey without fear.
Thank you so much for joining us today. Keep learning, keep growing, and remember, you've got this.
See you next time!